Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's fist watching the blue-green marble of Earth rotate slowly beneath them. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, almost innocent. His forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the tactical displays showing the primitive world below. Such a small, insignificant planet, he mused to his second-in-command, Commander Yixel. Hard to believe these humans have been causing so much trouble for our expansion fleets. Commander Yixel's reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among the Zephyrian race. The reports from our scout ships were quite amusing, Admiral. They claim these humans are dangerous fighters, but look at their technology. Chemical projectile weapons, combustion engines, primitive communication systems. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. The Admiral's laugh was a harsh, guttural sound that echoed through the bridge. Around them, the crew of various alien species continued their duties, preparing for what they assumed would be a simple conquest. The Galactic Empire had absorbed over 3,000 worlds in the past century, and none had taken more than a few days to subdue. Dangerous fighters, Admiral Zektar repeated mockingly. The Empire's intelligence division grows more paranoid each cycle. These humans barely qualify as a Class II civilization. Their largest weapons can't even breach our shield generators. On the main view screen, detailed scans of Earth's surface revealed cities, roads, and what appeared to be military installations. Everything looked quaint and backward to the assembled alien crew. Some of the younger officers were already discussing how quickly they could strip the planet of its resources and move on to the next system. Admiral, called out Navigation Officer Thren from her station, we're receiving multiple primitive radio transmissions from the planet's surface. Should we respond? Let me hear them, the Admiral commanded. Static-filled voices crackled through the bridge speakers. Different languages, different accents, but all clearly agitated. The universal translators worked overtime to convert the babble of human languages into something the crew could understand. Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. You are entering restricted airspace. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. All military units, we have confirmed hostile alien craft in orbit. Repeat. We have confirmed hostile alien presence. This is the United Nations Emergency Council. We demand immediate communication with the commanding officer of the alien fleet. Admiral Zektar burst into laughter, his massive frame shaking with mirth. Listen to them. They're demanding to speak with me. These primitive creatures think they can negotiate with the Empire. The bridge crew joined in the laughter. Commander Yixel pulled up files on her datapad, reading aloud for the Admiral's amusement. According to our intelligence reports, these humans still fight wars among themselves using what they call guerrilla tactics. They hide in forests and shoot at each other with metal pellets. Absolutely primitive. Guerrilla tactics, the Admiral repeated, wiping tears from his eyes. What's next? Are they going to throw rocks at our ships? The ship's chief intelligence officer, a thin, gray-skinned being called Mordak, stepped forward hesitantly. Admiral, if I may. The reports from our advanced scouts did mention some concerning details about human warfare capabilities. Oh? The Admiral turned, still grinning. Do tell us about these fearsome humans, Mordak. Mordak consulted his data tablet nervously. Well, sir, they have a documented history of extremely effective small unit tactics. Their soldiers, particularly those they call snipers and special forces, have demonstrated remarkable ability to operate independently in hostile environments. Some of our scout ships reported unusual difficulties tracking human military movements in forested areas. The Admiral's grin widened. Difficulties tracking them? Mordak, our sensors can detect a mouse from orbit. These humans use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. What possible threat could they pose to ships that can glass entire continents? Furthermore, Commander Yixel added, our ground forces are equipped with personal energy shields, plasma weapons, and powered armor. Each of our soldiers is worth 50 of theirs at minimum. Mordak looked uncomfortable but pressed on. Sir, there were also reports of humans demonstrating unusual adaptability and persistence. Several scout teams reported that human forces seem to learn and adapt to our tactics unusually quickly. Adaptability. The Admiral slapped his knee with one of his four hands. Mordak, you're starting to sound like you believe their propaganda. Next you'll be telling me they can fly. The bridge erupted in fresh laughter. Even the usually serious Navigation Officer Thren was chuckling as she monitored Earth's increasingly frantic communications. Sir, called out the communications officer, Earth Defense Command is now threatening to defend their planet with everything they have. They're mobilizing what appears to be their entire military. Everything they have, the Admiral repeated in mock terror. Should I order the fleet to retreat, Commander? Perhaps we should send a diplomatic message, Commander Yixel suggested with false sincerity. We wouldn't want to anger these fierce humans with their metal pellet shooters. Admiral Zektar stood up, his imposing figure casting shadows across the bridge. Very well. Open a communication channel to their defense command. The main screen shifted to show a room full of humans in military uniforms. They looked tense, frightened, but determined. The Admiral found their expressions amusing. Humans of Earth, he began, his voice carrying the authority of countless conquered worlds. I am Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Empire. Your planet has been selected for Imperial integration. You have 1 standard galactic hour to surrender unconditionally. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. A stern-faced human with gray hair stepped forward. This is General Martinez of Earth Defense Command. We reject your demands. Earth will defend itself. The Admiral's laughter filled the bridge again. General Martinez, you seem to misunderstand your situation. We have over 200 warships in orbit around your planet. Each one could destroy your largest cities. Your weapons cannot even reach us up here. We'll see about that, General Martinez replied grimly before cutting the transmission. Did you hear that? Admiral Zektar turned to his crew. They'll see about that. I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. Commander Yixel pulled up tactical displays showing Earth's military installations. Sir, they're moving forces into position around major population centers. It looks like they're actually planning to fight. Of course they are, the Admiral said, settling back into his command chair. Every primitive species does this. They posture and threaten until they see our true power. Then they surrender quickly enough. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Zektar. Prepare for standard pacification protocols. We'll begin with limited orbital bombardment of military targets. Once they see a few of their installations turn to glass, they'll come crawling back begging for mercy. Around the bridge, officers began implementing the Admiral's orders. Weapon systems charged, targeting computers locked onto Earth's military bases, and the great engines of war prepared to demonstrate the Empire's might. Admiral Zektar smiled as he watched his fleet move into attack formation. Another quick conquest for the Empire. Another primitive world to be absorbed and stripped of resources. By this time tomorrow, the humans would be surrendering en masse, and he'd be filing his report about yet another successful operation against a backward species who thought they could stand against galactic civilization. He had no idea that in the jungles and forests below, human snipers were already taking position, their scopes trained skyward, waiting for their moment. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones who fought from the shadows. The first orbital bombardment began at precisely 800 hours Earth time. Brilliant beams of plasma energy lanced down from the alien fleet, striking military installations across the globe. The Pentagon's outer walls turned to molten glass in seconds. RAF Fylingdales disappeared in a pillar of superheated air. Naval bases in Japan, Australia, and Germany simply vanished. Admiral Zektar watched the destruction with satisfaction from his command chair. Each strike was precisely calculated to destroy military infrastructure while leaving civilian populations intact. Dead slaves were worthless to the Empire, after all. Excellent targeting, Commander Yixel, he praised his second-in-command. How long before they request terms of surrender? Based on historical data from similar conquests, Admiral, I estimate 18 standard minutes. Primitive species typically break after witnessing their military power reduced to vapor. The communications officer turned from her station. Sir, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet's surface. Most appear to be civilian communications, but there are still military signals as well. Military signals? The Admiral frowned. Show me the tactical display. The main screen shifted to show a real-time map of Earth. Red indicators marked the locations they had already destroyed, but green indicators still dotted the planet's surface like scattered stars. Far too many green indicators. Commander? Admiral Zektar's voice carried a note of confusion. We've eliminated their primary military installations. What are these remaining signals? Commander Yixel consulted her datapad quickly. Sir, it appears the humans have distributed their military forces much more widely than our intelligence suggested. These signals are coming from Forests, mountains, desert regions, even urban areas with no apparent military infrastructure. The Admiral's 4 eyes narrowed. Are you telling me they scattered their forces before we arrived? It appears so, sir. They seem to have anticipated orbital bombardment and dispersed accordingly. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. The tactical officer's voice cut through the noise. Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple launch events across all continents. Launch events? Admiral Zektar stood up sharply. What kind of launch events? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are strange. Much lower than expected for planetary defense systems, but there are hundreds of them. Thousands, actually. The main screen showed Earth's surface dotted with tiny flashes of light. From orbit, they looked like fireflies blinking in the darkness of a summer evening. But these fireflies were moving upward toward the fleet. Sir, the sensor operator called out urgently. We're tracking multiple small projectiles heading toward our ships. Estimated time to contact 47 minutes. Admiral Zektar laughed, though it sounded less confident than before. Projectiles? What kind of projectiles could possibly reach us at this altitude? Analysis suggests they're chemical rockets, sir. Primitive by our standards, but there are a lot of them. Chemical rockets? The Admiral's laughter returned full force. Commander, these humans are even more amusing than I thought. They're actually shooting fireworks at us. The bridge crew joined in the laughter, but it was interrupted by another alarm. This time, it was the communications officer who looked alarmed. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. Put it through, the Admiral commanded, eager to hear the humans surrender. The screen filled with the image of General Martinez again, but this time he was clearly in some kind of bunker or underground facility. Other military officers from various nations stood behind him. Admiral Zektar, General Martinez began, his voice steady despite the circumstances. You've made a mistake. You think this is about our technology. You think because our weapons are primitive compared to yours we can't hurt you. Admiral Zektar leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Go on, General. Enlighten me. You're fighting the wrong war, Admiral. You're thinking like an empire that conquers civilized worlds with organized militaries and central command structures. But that's not what Earth is. The General gestured to the officers behind him. These are representatives from every nation on Earth. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know every trick, every tactic, every way to hurt an enemy who thinks they're superior. Your point being? Admiral Zektar asked, though his amusement was beginning to waver. Our point, said a new voice as another human stepped into view, is that you just declared war on a planet full of guerrilla fighters who've had centuries to perfect the art of killing from the shadows. This human was different from the others. Smaller, wearing different clothing with scars visible on his face and hands. Admiral Zektar recognized the type from countless worlds, a career soldier. I'm Colonel James Reed, Earth Special Operations Command, the scarred human continued. Admiral, you've just made the same mistake every overconfident invader has made throughout human history. You assumed we'd fight you on your terms. Your chemical rockets can't even penetrate our shields, Admiral Zektar scoffed. But his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Colonel Reed smiled grimly. Who said anything about penetrating your shields? The transmission cut off just as the first wave of human missiles reached the outer edge of the fleet. Admiral Zektar watched in amazement as hundreds of primitive rockets approached his ships. The defensive systems didn't even bother to engage them. The projectiles were too small and weak to pose any threat. Sir, the tactical officer reported, the projectiles are impacting our outer ships now. No damage to shields or hull integrity. They appear to be detonating harmlessly against our defensive barriers. Admiral Zektar was about to comment on the futility of the human attack when something odd caught his attention. The detonating missiles weren't creating explosions. Instead, they were releasing clouds of some kind of particles. Tactical, what are those clouds? Analysis in progress, sir. The particles appear to be metallic? They're very small, creating a kind of dispersal pattern around our ships. Chaff, Commander Yixel said suddenly. They're deploying primitive electronic countermeasures. Admiral Zektar laughed again, but it sounded forced. Chaff? They think they can blind our sensors with metal fragments? Sir, the sensor operator's voice was puzzled. The chaff is having minimal effect on our systems, but it's creating some interference with long-range scanning. Nothing significant. The Admiral was about to dismiss the human attack entirely when the communications officer spoke up again. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Earth's surface." "Multiple transmissions, actually. More surrender offers?" Admiral Zektar asked hopefully. "No, sir. They appear to be taunting us." The main screen filled with dozens of small video feeds from around the planet. Each showed human soldiers in various environments: dense jungle, snowy mountains, urban ruins, desert landscapes. They were all looking directly at their cameras. "Hello up there," said one soldier, a woman with painted face camouflage sitting in what appeared to be a tree. "Nice ships you've got. Shame if something happened to them." Another soldier, this one in desert gear, waved cheerfully at the camera. "Thanks for the fireworks show earlier. Our turn now." A third, barely visible in thick jungle undergrowth, spoke in a whisper. "You want to know what the chaff was for? It wasn't to blind your sensors. It was to mark your positions." Admiral Zektar felt a chill run down his spine as more soldiers appeared on screen, each one speaking in turn. "We've been watching you since you arrived, tracking your patrol routes, learning your patterns, calculating firing solutions. You see, Admiral," came Colonel Reed's voice over the multiple feeds, "while you were laughing at our primitive weapons, our snipers were doing what they do best, which is?" Admiral Zektar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. The colonel's smile was visible even through the static of the transmission. "Finding targets." Suddenly, every screen went dark except for one. A single human soldier, barely visible in dense foliage, was looking through what appeared to be a telescopic sight. He was speaking very quietly. "Admiral Zektar of the Dominion's Fist, bridge-level command section. Target acquired." The transmission ended, and Admiral Zektar found himself staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. A cold realization beginning to dawn on him. Somewhere far below, in the green shadows of Earth's jungles, human eyes were watching him through scopes, and human fingers were tightening on triggers. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had been lying motionless in the canopy of the Amazon rainforest for 18 hours. Her ghillie suit, woven with local vegetation, made her virtually invisible among the thick branches of the Cecropia tree. Insects crawled across her face and sweat pooled in her boots, but she didn't move. 40 feet below her, alien patrol craft moved through the jungle like mechanical sharks, their sensors sweeping back and forth. The aliens had landed ground forces 6 hours after their orbital bombardment, confident that Earth's military was broken. They were wrong. The bombardment had destroyed bases and headquarters, but it had scattered Earth's forces into exactly the kind of fight they were trained for: guerrilla warfare. Through her scope, Maria could see her target clearly. An alien transport ship, hovering 3 miles away above a clearing the invaders had burned out for a landing zone. The ship was massive, easily the size of a city block, and it was disgorging alien soldiers by the hundreds. Nightingale 1. "This is Sparrow 7, she whispered into her throat mic, using the bird-based call signs that had replaced all military communications since the invasion began. "Target in sight, requesting permission to engage." The response came through her earpiece in Colonel Reed's steady voice. "Sparrow 7, you are weapons free. All units execute Operation Longshot." Around the world, similar conversations were taking place in dozens of languages. In the mountains of Afghanistan, Sergeant Ahmed Farouk adjusted his breathing as he lined up a shot on an alien command post. In the forests of Finland, Corporal Aino Virtanen tracked an alien patrol through her scope. In the urban ruins of Detroit, Master Sergeant Robert Washington found his target through a hole blown in a skyscraper wall. Maria's target was the transport ship's main engine assembly. Intelligence had identified it as a critical vulnerability after analyzing wreckage from the few alien craft they'd managed to down. The engines were heavily armored, but there was a small thermal exhaust port that appeared to be unshielded. Distance, 3,200 meters, she murmured to herself, adjusting for wind speed and the alien ship's movement. Target speed, minimal hover drift. Environmental factors, humid air, temperature differential. The weapon in her hands wasn't the standard-issue rifle she'd trained with for 15 years. When the invasion began, Earth's military leaders had made a desperate decision. Every piece of experimental military technology, every prototype weapon, every classified project was rushed into production. The rifle Maria carried was one of only 50 magnetic rail rifles that existed on Earth. It fired depleted uranium rounds at velocities that would have been science fiction just months ago. Through her scope, she could see alien soldiers moving around the landing zone. They were large, heavily armored, and moved with the confidence of a species that had conquered thousands of worlds. They had no idea they were being watched. Wind speed 2.3 meters per second southeast, Maria calculated. Compensating, her finger found the trigger. In training, they'd always taught her to fire on the exhale when her body was most stable. She drew a deep breath, let half of it out, and gently squeezed. The magnetic rail rifle made almost no sound, just a soft hum as it accelerated the projectile to hypersonic speeds. The depleted uranium round crossed 3 miles of jungle air in less than 2 seconds. The alien transport ship's engine exploded in a brilliant flash of blue-white light. The massive vessel lurched sideways, its anti-gravity systems failing, and crashed into the jungle with the force of a small earthquake. Trees snapped like toothpicks as the ship carved a half-mile furrow through the rainforest. "Target neutralized," Maria reported calmly, already shifting her position. The first rule of sniper warfare was simple: shoot and move. The aliens would triangulate her shot within minutes, around the world. Similar reports were flooding in. Eagle 2 to base, enemy command post destroyed. Falcon 6, alien patrol eliminated. Hawk 7, transport down. But the aliens were not defenseless. Even as Maria slithered down from her tree, alien aircraft were converging on her position. Energy weapons began turning the jungle canopy into steam and ash as they searched for the source of the attack. Colonel Reed's voice crackled through every sniper's earpiece. "All units, execute withdrawal protocol Epsilon, secondary positions in 2 hours." Maria was already moving, using game trails and riverbeds to navigate through terrain that the aliens' sensors couldn't penetrate effectively. The jungle was her ally, hiding her heat signature and breaking up her movement pattern. Behind her, she could hear the alien search teams crashing through the undergrowth, their heavy armor and energy weapons making them as subtle as elephants. 3 miles away, in a hidden bunker carved into a hill, General Martinez watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Red icons were appearing across the globe as alien assets fell to sniper fire. But for every red icon, 3 more yellow ones appeared as the aliens brought in reinforcements. "General," said his aide, Captain Thompson, "initial casualty reports are coming in. We've destroyed or damaged 47 alien craft and eliminated an estimated 300 enemy personnel. And our losses? Minimal, sir. 3 snipers confirmed down, 5 more out of communication. The aliens are having trouble tracking our people in the terrain we've chosen." General Martinez nodded. This was going exactly as they'd planned. Earth couldn't match the aliens' technology, but they could make every victory cost more than the Empire was willing to pay. The main screen showed a feed from orbit, where Admiral Zektar's fleet was beginning to show signs of confusion. Alien ships that had been in neat formations were now scattered, some moving to provide fire support for ground operations, others trying to establish sensor nets to track human snipers. "Sir," Captain Thompson continued, "we're receiving reports from sniper teams worldwide. The aliens are adapting faster than we expected. They're using broader sensor sweeps and bringing in specialized hunting units." "Expected," the general replied. "Phase 2 of Longshot anticipated this. Send the word." All teams moved to Phase 2 positions. Phase 2 was going to be much more dangerous. While Phase 1 had involved shooting at alien assets from maximum range, Phase 2 required the snipers to get much closer to their targets, close enough to hit critical systems that were too small to engage from miles away, close enough to be detected and killed if they made a single mistake. Back in the jungle, Maria had reached her Phase 2 position, a cave system that intelligence teams had identified as offering direct line of sight to the aliens' main command post. The post was heavily defended, surrounded by energy shields and patrolled by alien soldiers in powered armor. But intelligence had also identified a weakness. Every 4 hours, the shields had to be briefly lowered to allow supply transports to land. During those 30-second windows, the command post's communication arrays were vulnerable. Maria checked her chronometer. The next supply run was in 43 minutes. She began setting up her rifle, using the cave's natural acoustics to muffle any sound. The shot would be even longer this time, nearly 4 miles, and she'd have only one chance. Through her scope, She could see alien officers moving around inside the command post's transparent walls. One of them, larger than the others and wearing more elaborate armor, was clearly in charge. If she could eliminate the local commander, it might disrupt alien operations in this entire sector. Her radio crackled softly. "All units, this is base. Intel reports the aliens are calling for reinforcements from orbit. We estimate 6 hours before significant additional forces arrive. Make your shots count." Maria smiled grimly as she settled into position. 6 hours was plenty of time. If there was one thing human snipers had learned in countless wars, it was how to make every shot count when the stakes were life and death. Above the jungle canopy, alien aircraft continued their search patterns, their sensors sweeping back and forth through the green maze below. They were looking for an enemy that had already moved, always one step ahead, always watching, always ready to strike from the shadows. The aliens were about to learn that some prey fought back, and some fights couldn't be won with superior technology alone. Admiral Zektar stared at the tactical display in growing disbelief. In the past 12 hours, his ground forces had lost 47 transport ships, 6 command posts, and over 400 soldiers. The humans were picking apart his invasion force piece by piece, striking from impossible distances and vanishing before his forces could respond. "Commander Yixel," he said, his voice tight with frustration, "explain to me how a primitive species with chemical projectile weapons is destroying our equipment faster than we can replace it." Commander Yixel looked uncomfortable as she consulted her datapad. "Sir, our ground commanders report that the humans are employing what they call sniper tactics, from ranges we didn't believe their weapons could achieve. They're using natural terrain to hide their positions, and striking only at critical system vulnerabilities that our intelligence division assured me didn't exist." The Admiral growled. Chief Intelligence Officer Mordak stepped forward nervously. "Sir, the vulnerabilities are minimal by our standards. The thermal exhaust ports, communication relays, and sensor arrays that the humans are targeting were never considered critical weaknesses because no known species had weapons accurate enough to hit them at the ranges these humans are shooting from, and yet they are hitting them," Admiral Zektar pointed out coldly. "Yes, sir. Our analysis suggests that humans have developed individual marksmanship skills far beyond what we considered possible for a pre-spaceflight species. Some of their shots are coming from distances exceeding 5 kilometers. The Admiral's 4 eyes widened. 5 kilometers? With primitive chemical weapons? "Yes, sir. And they're doing it consistently, in all kinds of terrain and weather conditions." Admiral Zektar activated the fleet communication system. "General Thakran, report." The main screen filled with the image of the ground force commander, a massive, heavily armored alien with scars covering his visible skin. Behind him, smoke rose from what had once been a supply depot. "Admiral," General Thakran's voice was gravelly with anger, "these humans are unlike any enemy we've faced. They don't attack our main forces. They don't try to hold territory. They simply appear, destroy our equipment, and disappear. You have superior armor, superior weapons, and superior numbers," Admiral Zektar said impatiently. "Hunt them down." "Sir, we've tried. Our hunting parties can track them to a certain point, but then the trail simply vanishes. The humans seem to know this terrain better than our sensors do. They use rivers, cave systems, and dense vegetation to break up their signatures. By the time we reach where we think they are, they're gone." The Admiral studied the map of human sniper activity. Red dots marked successful attacks, and they were scattered across every continent, every type of terrain. "What about our air support? Surely our aircraft can spot them." "They can, sir, but only occasionally and never for long. The humans have camouflage techniques that are remarkably effective. Even when we do spot them, they're usually in positions where orbital bombardment would cause massive collateral damage to resources we're trying to capture." Admiral Zektar's patience was wearing thin. "General, are you telling me that our ground forces are being defeated by invisible enemies?" "Not defeated, sir," General Thakran corrected quickly, "but significantly hindered. Every time we establish a forward base, it comes under sniper fire within hours. Every transport convoy requires heavy escort, which slows our advance considerably, and our soldiers are becoming cautious." "Cautious?" "They know that human snipers could be watching them from any direction at any time." "It's affecting morale, sir." Admiral Zektar cut the transmission and turned to his bridge crew. "Analysis of human sniper capabilities." What are we dealing with? The tactical officer brought up a new display. Sir, based on intercepted communications and observed activities, we estimate Earth has approximately 3,000 active snipers participating in resistance operations. They're organized into small independent teams with minimal command structure. 3,000, the Admiral mused. Against our force of 50,000 ground troops, yes, sir. But those 3,000 are having a disproportionate effect on our operations. Each human sniper team appears capable of operating independently for weeks without resupply or support. Commander Yixel studied the data. Admiral, there's something else. The humans seem to be learning our patterns faster than we're learning theirs. They're adapting their tactics in real time based on our responses. Show me. The display shifted to show attack patterns over time. Early human attacks had been straightforward, long-range shots at large targets. But as the aliens had adapted their defenses, the humans had begun targeting smaller, more critical systems. They'd started using coordinated attacks, timing multiple strikes to occur simultaneously across wide areas. They're thinking tactically, Commander Yixel continued, not just shooting randomly but choosing targets that will cause maximum disruption to our operations. Admiral Zektar was about to respond when alarms began blaring again. The communications officer looked up from her station urgently. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's coming from multiple locations simultaneously. Put it through. The main screen split into dozens of smaller images, each showing a different human in a different environment. Forest, desert, mountain, urban ruins, all armed, all watching the camera with calm, professional expressions. Colonel Reed appeared in the center of the display. Admiral Zektar, I believe your ground forces are experiencing some difficulties. Minor setbacks, the Admiral replied coldly. Nothing that can't be corrected with increased force. Increased force? Colonel Reed smiled. Admiral, you still don't understand what you're fighting. Let me show you something. The display shifted to show a map of Earth with thousands of green dots scattered across every continent. Each of these dots represents a human sniper team currently active against your forces. What you've encountered so far is just the first wave. Admiral Zektar stared at the display. That's impossible. Our intelligence estimated human military forces at no more than 50 million total, most of them equipped with obsolete weapons. Your intelligence was correct about the numbers, Colonel Reed admitted, but wrong about the capabilities. Admiral, humans have been fighting wars for our entire recorded history. Every culture, every nation, every society on this planet has produced warriors who specialize in precision killing from long range. Another human appeared on screen, an older man with weathered features. I'm Master Sergeant Chen Wei, Chinese People's Liberation Army. I've been hunting targets in mountain warfare for 30 years. A woman in different camouflage joined the transmission. Captain Sarah Mitchell, Australian Special Air Service. 15 years in desert operations. More faces appeared, each introducing themselves. Finnish snipers, Canadian Rangers, Russian Spetsnaz, British SAS, American Navy SEALs, German KSK, Israeli Sayeret, Brazilian jungle fighters, and dozens of others, you see. Admiral, Colonel Reed continued, you didn't invade a unified planet with a single military. You invaded a world where dozens of nations have spent centuries perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare against superior forces. Admiral Zektar felt a chill as the implications became clear. You're all working together. For the first time in human history, yes. Every sniper, every special forces operator, every guerrilla fighter on Earth is now part of the same army. Your army, Admiral, is facing the accumulated combat experience of our entire species. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Zektar staring at a dark screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked in uncomfortable silence. The confident chatter of the early invasion had been replaced by grim determination. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, we're receiving reports of new sniper attacks. The humans appear to be coordinating strikes across multiple continents simultaneously. Admiral Zektar watched as red indicators bloomed across the tactical display like deadly flowers. His superior technology, his overwhelming numbers, his galactic experience meant nothing against an enemy that had turned an entire planet into a hunting ground. For the first time since the invasion began, Admiral Zektar wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Master Sergeant Robert Washington crawled through the ruins of downtown Detroit, his urban camouflage making him nearly invisible among the rubble and twisted metal. The aliens had bombed the city's military installations, but they'd left the urban landscape largely intact, thinking it held no strategic value. They were wrong. Washington had been fighting in urban environments for 22 years, from Fallujah to Mosul to a dozen other cities whose names were classified. He knew how to move through destroyed buildings like a ghost, how to find firing positions that offered perfect shots while remaining completely hidden. His target was 3 blocks away, an alien command walker that towered 30 feet above the street, its sensors sweeping back and forth as it coordinated ground operations. The walker was heavily armored and protected by energy shields, but Washington had spotted its weakness. The communications array on top was unshielded, relying on the walker's height and mobility for protection. Ghost 7 to Overwatch, he whispered into his throat mic, using the call sign he'd earned during his 3rd tour in Iraq. Target acquired. 1 shot, 1 kill. The response came from Colonel Reed's command post. Ghost 7, you are cleared to engage. Make it count. Washington settled into his firing position on the 15th floor of a half-collapsed office building. The aliens had learned to scan the obvious sniper positions, rooftops, bell towers, water towers, but they hadn't adapted to the 3-dimensional nature of urban warfare. His position was invisible from ground level and blocked from aerial observation by the building's damaged structure. Through his scope, he could see alien soldiers moving around the base of the walker. They looked confident, professional, but also tired. 3 days of constant sniper attacks had taken their toll on the invaders' morale. They moved differently now, always looking over their shoulders, always expecting death to come from an impossible distance. Washington's rifle was another of Earth's hastily developed superweapons, an electromagnetic pulse rifle that fired specially designed rounds capable of disrupting alien electronics. 1 shot to the walker's communication array would blind it and cut its connection to the alien command network. Wind speed minimal, he calculated. Distance 800 meters. Target moving at 2 kilometers per hour on predictable patrol route. He tracked the walker through his scope, learning its movement pattern. The alien pilot was following a standard search grid, turning at precise intervals, pausing to scan specific areas. Professional, but predictable. Washington's finger found the trigger. He controlled his breathing, slowing his heart rate, becoming one with his weapon. This shot would reveal his position to every alien sensor in the area. But if he succeeded, the disruption to their operations would be worth the risk. The walker paused at the end of its search pattern, exactly where Washington had predicted. The communications array was perfectly aligned with his crosshairs. He fired. The electromagnetic pulse round covered the distance in less than a second. It struck the walker's communications array dead center, and the massive machine immediately began to stagger. Sparks flew from its sensor pods, its movements became erratic, and its weapon systems went offline. The walker, now blind and deaf, tried to return to base but became disoriented. It crashed through an abandoned storefront, stumbled into a bus, and finally toppled over with a tremendous crash that shook the ground for blocks. Target neutralized, Washington reported, already moving to his extraction route. Command walker down. Around the world, similar reports flooded in as Earth snipers continued their coordinated assault on alien operations. From the Swiss Alps, Eagle 9, alien supply convoy eliminated. From the Australian outback, Dingo 4 forward base destroyed. From the Amazon, Jaguar 2 reinforcement dropship down, but the aliens were adapting too. General Thokran had realized that conventional counter-sniper tactics wouldn't work against humans, who could disappear into terrain his forces couldn't effectively search. He was implementing a new strategy. If he couldn't find the snipers, he would make their targets too valuable to resist. All units, General Thokran transmitted to his forces. New operational parameters. Cease dispersed operations. Consolidate all assets into heavily defended positions. Force the humans to come to us. Admiral Zektar watched this new strategy unfold from his flagship. The aliens were pulling back from their scattered positions and creating fortified strongholds around critical infrastructure. Power plants, water treatment facilities, hospitals, communication centers. Clever, Commander Yixel admitted grudgingly. If the humans want to disrupt our operations, they'll have to attack positions where we can concentrate our defenses, and where we can finally get clean shots at them, Admiral Zektar added. They can't remain invisible when they're forced to assault fortified positions. The first test of this new strategy came in São Paulo, Brazil. The aliens had taken control of the city's main power plant and surrounded it with energy shields, automated defense turrets, and 3 companies of their best soldiers. They were daring Earth's snipers to come after them. Sergeant Carlos Mendoza and his spotter, Corporal Ana Silva, had been watching the power plant for 6 hours from a position in the nearby favelas. The aliens had turned the facility into a fortress, but they'd made one critical mistake. They were thinking like an army that fought other armies. "They've got all the high ground covered," Corporal Silva observed through her binoculars. "Sensors watching every approach route. Motion detectors in the perimeter. This isn't a sniper mission anymore." Mendoza smiled grimly. "Then we don't fight it like a sniper mission." He activated his radio, switching to a frequency that connected him to resistance cells throughout the city. "This is Condor 7 to all Sparrow units. Time to show these aliens how urban warfare really works." Within minutes, explosions began erupting throughout São Paulo. Not large explosions. The resistance didn't have heavy weapons, but small, precisely placed charges that took out transformers, communication lines, and traffic control systems. The aliens' attention was pulled in dozens of directions as their occupation force tried to respond to what appeared to be a coordinated uprising. While the aliens dealt with these distractions, Mendoza and Silva moved through the storm drains beneath the city. The underground tunnels had been mapped by local resistance fighters who knew every maintenance access and utility corridor in the metropolitan area. They emerged inside the power plant's perimeter, having bypassed all the alien defenses by traveling underneath them. The aliens were monitoring the surface and the air, but they hadn't thought to guard against attacks from below. Mendoza's target was the plant's main control room, where alien technicians were trying to integrate their technology with Earth's power grid. Through the building's windows, he could see them working at computer terminals, completely unaware that death was watching them from 300 meters away. "One shot," Mendoza whispered to his spotter. "Take out their chief technician and they'll have to start their integration process all over again." The shot was perfect. The alien technician collapsed over his terminal, and immediately, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. But by the time alien security forces reached the control room, Mendoza and Silva were already back in the storm drains, moving to their next target. Similar operations were taking place around the world. In Tokyo, human snipers used the city's extensive subway system to attack aliens from below. In London, they emerged from the Thames tunnel system. In New York, they moved through the maze of maintenance tunnels beneath Manhattan Admiral. Zektar watched his carefully planned defensive strategy crumble as the humans demonstrated that they knew their own planet better than his forces ever could. Every advantage his technology provided was being neutralized by human knowledge of local terrain and infrastructure. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "General Thokran is requesting immediate reinforcements. He says the humans are using tactics he's never encountered before." "What kind of tactics?" "They're not fighting like an army, sir. They're fighting like the planet itself is trying to kill us." Admiral Zektar stared at the tactical display, watching red icons multiply across every continent. His invasion force, which had seemed overwhelmingly powerful just days ago, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that refused to fight the kind of war he knew how to win. "Commander Yixel," he said quietly, "prepare a message to Imperial Command. Request immediate strategic consultation." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Zektar was considering the possibility that the Galactic Empire might not be able to conquer Earth. Imperial War Marshal Korvex materialized on the bridge of the Dominion's fist, in a shimmering column of transported energy. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere of the command center. Where Admiral Zektar was large and imposing, the War Marshal was lean and predatory, with cybernetic implants covering half his skull and tactical data streaming directly into his enhanced vision. "Admiral," Marshal Korvex's voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered entire star systems. "Explain to me how a pre-spaceflight civilization is holding off the Empire's 7th Fleet." Admiral Zektar straightened, trying to maintain his composure. "Marshal, the humans are employing unconventional tactics that our standard operational procedures were not designed to counter. They refuse to engage in conventional warfare. Show me." The main screen filled with tactical data from the past week. Red indicators marked destroyed alien assets, yellow showed damaged equipment, and green represented successful human operations. The display looked like a disease spreading across the planet. Marshal Korvax studied the data with his enhanced vision, processing information faster than any unaugmented being could follow. Impressive kill ratios, he admitted, but ultimately irrelevant. Admiral, you've been fighting this campaign like these humans are a real threat. They're not. They're an infestation, sir. You've been trying to preserve their infrastructure for Imperial use. This has limited your tactical options and given them sanctuary in areas you consider valuable. The Marshal's cybernetic eye glowed as he accessed fleet records. Implement Protocol 7. Admiral Zektar felt his blood chill. Protocol 7 was the Empire's final solution for rebellious worlds. Complete orbital sterilization followed by terraforming for Imperial colonists. Marshal, if we implement Protocol 7, we'll lose all the planet's resources. The entire reason for this conquest was to acquire Earth's rare minerals and biological diversity. The acquisition value has been deemed acceptable losses, Marshal Korvax replied coldly. These humans have demonstrated capabilities that make them unsuitable for Imperial integration. They will be classified as a hostile species and eliminated accordingly. Commander Yixel stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, Protocol 7 requires authorization from the Imperial Senate. The political implications of destroying an entire sentient species have been considered and approved. The Marshal transmitted authorization codes to the bridge computers. All fleet assets will withdraw to safe orbital distance. Planetary sterilization begins in 6 standard hours. Admiral Zektar watched the authorization codes appear on his screens with a mixture of relief and regret. Relief that his tactical failures would soon be irrelevant. Regret that such an interesting species would be erased from existence. General Thokran, he transmitted to the ground forces commander, immediate evacuation of all Imperial assets. Protocol 7 is now in effect. On the planet's surface, General Thokran received the transmission with mixed emotions. His ground forces had been taking casualties for a week, slowly ground down by an enemy they could barely see, let alone fight effectively. The withdrawal order meant survival for his troops, but it also meant admitting defeat. All units commence immediate evacuation procedures, he ordered. Priority extraction for all personnel and critical equipment. Everything else is expendable. Around the world, alien forces began pulling back to their landing zones. Transport ships descended from orbit to collect troops and equipment, while fighter craft provided cover. It was a professional, organized withdrawal, but it was still a withdrawal. In her hidden position in the Amazon canopy, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos watched alien transport ships loading up with troops and equipment. Through her scope, she could see alien soldiers looking relieved as they prepared to leave Earth's hostile environment. Something's wrong, she transmitted to her command post. The aliens are evacuating. Full-scale withdrawal from all positions. Similar reports came in from around the world. Every human sniper team, every resistance cell, every observer reported the same thing. The aliens were leaving. In his underground command bunker, General Martinez studied the global tactical display with growing concern. They're not retreating, he told his staff. This is too organized, too systematic. They're preparing for something. Colonel Reed nodded grimly. I agree, sir. This looks like they're clearing the field for a different kind of operation, such as orbital bombardment, total sterilization. If they can't conquer us conventionally, they might decide to glass the entire planet. General Martinez felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Earth's sniper campaign had been incredibly successful, far beyond their most optimistic projections. But success against ground forces meant nothing if the aliens decided to simply eliminate all life on the planet. How long do we have? Based on their evacuation timeline, I estimate 6 hours before they're ready to begin orbital strikes. Then we have 6 hours to convince them that destroying Earth isn't in their best interest. In orbit, Marshal Korvax supervised the final preparations for Protocol 7. The fleet had withdrawn to a safe distance, and the planet-killing weapons were charging to full power. Earth would be reduced to molten slag within hours, then allowed to cool for Imperial terraforming crews. Marshal, Admiral Zektar said, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. The humans are requesting communication. Ignore it. Dead species don't get to negotiate. Sir, they're broadcasting on our military frequencies. They shouldn't know our communication protocols. Marshal Korvax's cybernetic eye flashed with interest. Put it through. The main screen filled with the image of General Martinez in his command bunker. Behind him stood military officers from dozens of different nations, all looking directly at the camera with calm determination. Marshal Corvex of the Galactic Empire, General Martinez began. I am General Martinez, commanding Earth Defense Forces. We need to talk. You have nothing to say that interests the Empire, the Marshal replied. Your planet will be sterilized in 5 hours and 37 minutes. Marshal, you're making the same mistake Admiral Zektar made. You're underestimating what humans are capable of. Your capabilities are irrelevant. No planetary defense can stop orbital sterilization. General Martinez smiled grimly. Marshal, you've spent the past week learning that human snipers can hit targets you thought were impossible to reach. What makes you think your ships are safe just because they're in orbit? Marshal Corvex laughed, a harsh sound enhanced by his cybernetic implants. General, your most advanced weapons cannot reach orbital altitude. This conversation is pointless. Our most advanced weapons couldn't reach your ships, General Martinez corrected. Past tense, Marshal. The screen shifted to show a new image. A massive construction site hidden in the mountains of Tibet. Hundreds of workers, both military and civilian, were putting finishing touches on what appeared to be an enormous railgun, its barrel pointed directly skyward. For the past week, while your forces were hunting our snipers, our engineers were building this, the world's largest electromagnetic launcher, powered by every hydroelectric plant in Asia. Marshal Corvex studied the weapon with his enhanced vision. Impressive but primitive. Your projectile velocities are insufficient to penetrate our shields. Perhaps, General Martinez acknowledged. But Marshal, you're thinking like someone who's only fought civilized wars against civilized enemies. This isn't a weapon designed to penetrate your shields. The image changed again, showing the projectile loaded in the massive railgun. It wasn't a solid round or an explosive warhead. It was a complex device covered in sensors and communication arrays. Marshal, meet the Longshot package. 1,200 pounds of our most advanced electronics, including everything we've learned about your technology from studying the wreckage of your ships. Marshal Corvex felt the first stirrings of concern. What is your point, General? The point, Marshal, is that you're not fighting a primitive planet anymore. You're fighting a species that's had 7 days to study your technology, reverse engineer your systems, and develop countermeasures. The railgun fired with a flash of electromagnetic energy that was visible from orbit. The Longshot package accelerated to escape velocity in less than 3 seconds, racing toward the alien fleet at speeds that no conventional weapon could match. Your shields can stop physical projectiles. Marshal! General Martinez continued as the package screamed upward through Earth's atmosphere. But can they stop a localized electromagnetic pulse designed specifically to disrupt your exact model of shield generators? Marshal Corvex's cybernetic implants were already calculating trajectories and analyzing the approaching projectile. All ships, evasive maneuvers! Prepare for electronic warfare countermeasures. But the Longshot package wasn't aimed at any specific ship. As it reached the outer edge of the fleet's formation, it detonated in a brilliant flash of electromagnetic energy that washed over every alien vessel in orbit. For exactly 4.7 seconds, every shield generator in the fleet went offline. In those 4 seconds, 3,000 human snipers positioned in carefully calculated locations around the globe opened fire simultaneously with magnetic rail rifles loaded with armor-piercing rounds. The shots came from impossible distances, at impossible and General Martinez stood in his command bunker, surrounded by military leaders from every major nation on Earth, as he faced the holographic projection of Marshal Corvex. The alien war leader's cybernetic enhancements glowed with barely contained rage, but Martinez could see something else in those artificial eyes. Respect. You wanted our attention, General? Marshal Corvex said, his voice carrying across space with crystal clarity. You have it. What are your terms? Simple, Marshal. You leave our solar system immediately and never return. In exchange, we don't destroy the rest of your fleet. The Marshal's laugh was harsh and mechanical. General, you've damaged some of our ships, but you haven't destroyed our capability to sterilize your planet. We still have enough firepower to turn Earth into molten rock, and we have enough surprises to turn your fleet into space debris. General Martinez replied calmly. Marshal, the Longshot package was just a demonstration. Would you like to see what we've prepared for an encore? The screen split to show images from around the globe. Hidden installations in the Sahara Desert, the Australian outback, the Siberian tundra, and the Antarctic ice sheet. Each showed massive railgun installations larger than the one in Tibet, all pointed skyward. 7 electromagnetic launchers, Marshall, each one capable of delivering payloads to any point in near-Earth space. And we've had a week to study your shield frequencies, your hull compositions, and your maneuvering capabilities. Marshal Korvac studied the images with his enhanced vision, calculating trajectories and defensive options. Your weapons are still primitive, General. Even with multiple launchers, our remaining ships can evade. Marshal, interrupted Colonel Reed, stepping into view. You're still thinking conventionally. Those aren't conventional weapons. The screen changed to show the interior of one of the railgun installations. Instead of a single massive projectile, the launcher was loaded with hundreds of smaller packages, each one equipped with its own guidance system and thruster array. Shotgun rounds. Marshal, Colonel Reed explained with a grim smile. Each launcher fires 400 guided projectiles simultaneously. That's 2,800 individual targets for your defensive systems to track and engage. All of them programmed with your exact ship positions, maneuvering patterns, and system vulnerabilities. Furthermore, added a new voice as Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, joined the transmission. Each projectile contains a small nuclear device, not large enough to destroy your ships, but more than sufficient to overwhelm your defensive systems and cause critical system failures. Marshal Korvac felt his tactical implants struggling to process the mathematics of defending against such an attack. 2,800 guided nuclear projectiles, fired from 7 different locations, all converging on his fleet simultaneously. Even with their superior technology, the sheer number of incoming threats would overwhelm their point defense systems. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Are we? General Martinez asked. Marshal, you've already learned not to underestimate human capabilities. Would you like to bet your entire fleet on the assumption that we're bluffing? The alien war leader studied the humans on his screen. A week ago, he would have dismissed them as primitive savages playing with weapons they didn't understand. But he'd seen what these humans could accomplish when their survival was at stake. What guarantee do we have that you won't attack us during our withdrawal? Marshal Korvac asked. The same guarantee you've given us about not destroying our planet, General Martinez replied. None, but Marshal, consider this. We've demonstrated that we can hurt you. You've demonstrated that you can destroy us. Mutual destruction serves neither of our interests. And if we leave, what prevents you from developing spaceflight and becoming a threat to the Empire in the future? General Martinez exchanged glances with the other leaders before answering. Marshal, that's exactly what we're going to do. Humanity will develop spaceflight, and we will become a power in the galaxy. The question is whether we become your enemies or your allies. Elaborate. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Marshal, your empire has conquered 3,000 worlds, but how many of those conquests actually benefit the empire long term? How many of your subject species contribute innovations, new technologies, or strategic advantages? Most conquered species are incorporated as laborers or resource extraction units, the Marshal admitted. Exactly. You're an empire built on suppression and exploitation. But what if instead of conquering Earth you offered us a partnership? Marshal Korvac's cybernetic eye flashed with interest despite himself. What kind of partnership? A technological exchange, Dr. Chen continued. You've seen what humans can accomplish with primitive technology when we're fighting for survival. Imagine what we could develop with access to galactic-level science and engineering. Colonel Reed joined the conversation. Marshal, your forces have been fighting rebellions on conquered worlds for centuries. Earth's military leaders have been studying asymmetric warfare, counterinsurgency tactics, and guerrilla operations for millennia. We could help you solve problems you've been dealing with for generations. And in exchange, General Martinez answered, access to galactic technology, trade relationships, and mutual defense agreements. Earth becomes an independent ally of the Empire, not a conquered province. Marshal Korvac was silent for several minutes, his enhanced mind processing the implications. The Empire had never encountered a species that could pose a credible threat with such primitive technology. If these humans could develop such devastating weapons in a week, what could they accomplish with decades or centuries of development? There would be conditions, he said finally. We're listening. Earth's military development must be monitored by Imperial observers. Your technology advancement must be gradual and controlled, and you must provide military assistance to the Empire when requested. General Martinez turned to consult with his fellow leaders. After several minutes of whispered conversation, he faced the screen again. Counter-proposal, Marshal. Joint technology development programs with shared benefits. Limited Imperial observation in exchange for limited Earth observation of Imperial technology. And mutual defense agreements, not one-sided military service. You're in no position to make demands, General. Aren't we? General Martinez gestured to the tactical display showing Marshal Corvex's damaged fleet. Marshal, you came here to conquer a primitive world and found yourself negotiating with equals. That should tell you something about human potential. The alien war leader studied the humans for a long moment. His tactical implants were running probability calculations, and they all pointed to the same conclusion. Earth was too dangerous to conquer and too valuable to destroy. Very well, he said finally. I'll transmit your proposal to Imperial Command. In the meantime, both our forces will withdraw to non-threatening positions. Agreed, General Martinez nodded. Oh, Marshal, there's one more thing. What? The next time the Empire encounters a species fighting for survival, remember what you learned here. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies make the best allies. As the transmission ended, Marshal Corvex stared at the blue-green world below. For the first time in his military career, he had encountered a species that had earned the Empire's respect rather than simply its conquest. On Earth's surface, in jungles and forests around the world, human snipers maintained their vigil, ready to defend their world if the aliens changed their minds. But for the first time since the invasion began, they were watching a fleet that was withdrawing rather than attacking. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, still hidden in her Amazon canopy, watched alien transport ships departing through her scope. After a week of hunting aliens, she was finally able to relax her finger on the trigger. All units, this is command, came General Martinez's voice over the radio. Stand down from combat alert. The aliens are withdrawing. Repeat. Stand down from combat alert. Maria smiled as she began disassembling her rifle. Humanity had faced its first test as a galactic species and proven that Earth's children could hold their own. Among the stars, the galaxy would never again underestimate the humans who fought from the shadows, who turned entire worlds into hunting grounds, and who proved that sometimes the best defense against superior technology was superior tactics. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that some prey was too dangerous to hunt.